Gene Kelly tried to teach Dean Martin to dance. What Dean said made Gene laugh for 10 minutes straight. Hollywood, 1958. The Sands Hotel was hosting a charity gala, and the organizers had convinced two of the biggest names in entertainment to perform together. Gene Kelly, the greatest dancer in movie history, and Dean Martin, the coolest singer who ever lived. It sounded perfect on paper. One small problem: Dean Martin couldn't dance. Well, that's not entirely true. Dean could move. He had rhythm. He could do a basic box step without stepping on anyone's toes. But Gene Kelly dancing, that was art. That was physics defying movement. That was perfection. And the idea of Gene Kelly and Dean Martin doing a coordinated dance number was either going to be spectacular or a complete disaster. Gene took the assignment seriously. Of course he did. Gene Kelly took everything seriously. He'd spend 16 hours choreographing a 30-second sequence. He'd do 100 takes to get one spin exactly right. Perfection wasn't just a goal for Gene. It was the baseline. Anything less was failure. Dean, on the other hand, took the assignment the way he took most things, with a cigarette, a drink, and a shrug. They met for their first rehearsal on a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Gene showed up at 9:30 to warm up. Dean showed up at 10:15 with coffee and sunglasses, looking like he'd just rolled out of bed, which he had. "Morning, Gene," Dean said, setting his coffee down on the piano. "Ready to make me look like Fred Astaire?" Gene smiled. He liked Dean. Everyone liked Dean. But this was going to be a challenge. "Dean, have you done any dancing? Any formal training? Does slow dancing at weddings count?" "Not really, no." "Then no. No formal training. But I can fake it pretty good. Watch." Dean did a little shuffle step that was somewhere between a soft shoe and someone trying to avoid stepping on broken glass. "See? Natural talent." Gene laughed. "Okay, we've got work to do. Let me show you what I'm thinking for the routine." What Gene showed Dean was a 3-minute dance sequence that involved tap steps, spins, a lift, synchronized movement, and a finish that required both of them to slide across the stage and land in a pose. It was beautiful. It was complex. It was absolutely impossible for Dean Martin. Dean watched the whole thing, sipping his coffee, cigarette dangling from his lips. When Gene finished, breathing hard and barely sweating, he looked at Dean expectantly. "So, what do you think?" Dean took a long drag of his cigarette. "I think you're out of your mind if you believe I can do any of that." "Dean, it's not that complicated. I'll teach you step by step. We've got 2 weeks." "Gene, I appreciate the optimism. I really do. But I'm going to be honest with you. I can't do that. I won't do that. And more importantly, I don't want to do that." Gene blinked. In his entire career, no one had ever just refused to try. "What do you mean you won't do it?" "I mean exactly what I said. That's your thing, Gene, not mine. You're the dancer. I'm the guy who stands at the microphone and sings while looking relaxed. That's my lane. I'm staying in it. But the whole point of this performance is us doing something together. A duet, dance and song combined." Dean stubbed out his cigarette. "And we will. I'll sing. You'll dance. Together. Just not doing the same thing." Gene felt frustration rising. He'd choreographed the entire routine, spent hours on it, and Dean was just dismissing it without even trying. "Dean, you haven't even attempted it yet. How do you know you can't do it?" "Because I know my limitations, Gene, and more importantly, I know my strength. My strength is making difficult things look easy. Your strength is making impossible things look effortless. But they're different kinds of easy. You want to rehearse for 2 weeks until every step is perfect. I want to walk on stage, sing a song, and go home. Neither approach is wrong. They're just different. So you're not even going to try. Dean poured himself another cup of coffee. Tell you what, show me one move. Your choice. I'll try it. If I can do it, we'll do your routine. If I can't, we do it my way. Deal? Gene thought about it. One move. He could pick something simple. A basic tap sequence. Something Dean could actually learn, but his pride wouldn't let him. If Dean was going to dismiss his choreography without trying, then Dean could at least see what real dancing looked like. All right, watch this. Gene did a triple spin into a slide, tapped out a rhythm with his feet that sounded like a drum solo, jumped, clicked his heels mid-air, and landed in a split. He popped back up. Your turn. Dean stared at him. You're kidding. You said one move, that's one move. Gene, I'm 51 years old. If I tried to do a split, they'd have to carry me off the stage on a stretcher. So you're admitting you can't do it. I'm admitting that I have a functioning brain and a sense of self-preservation. Those are two very different things. Gene crossed his arms. So, what do you suggest? I dance. You stand there and sing, and we call that collaboration. Dean lit another cigarette. Why not? You do what you're great at. I do what I'm great at. The audience gets both. Everybody wins. That's not a duet. That's two separate performances happening simultaneously. Gene, can I ask you something? Why do you dance? The question caught Gene off guard. What do you mean? I mean, why do you do it? What's the point? To entertain people, to create something beautiful, to push the boundaries of what's possible. Okay. And why do I sing? Same reasons, I assume. Wrong. I sing because it's easy and it pays well. I sing because I can do it without breaking a sweat. I sing because it lets me look cool while doing the minimum amount of work. You and I are not the same, Gene. You're an artist. I'm an entertainer. You care about the craft. I care about the paycheck. And that's okay. Gene felt something shift. Not anger. Something else. You really don't care about being great. I care about being Dean Martin. And Dean Martin doesn't do splits. There was a long silence. Then Gene started laughing. Not a polite chuckle. A real deep from the belly laugh that lasted a full minute. Dean watched him. Confused, but amused. What's so funny? Gene wiped his eyes. You are. Do you know how many people I've worked with who pretend they don't care but secretly want to be perfect? Who act casual but obsess over every detail? You're the first person I've ever met who genuinely doesn't care, and somehow that makes you perfect at what you do. I've been telling people that for years. Nobody believes me. I believe you now. All right, Dean. We'll do it your way. You sing. I dance. No coordinated choreography. No synchronized steps. Just two guys doing what they do best. But I have one condition. What's that? At the end, you have to at least try one move with me. Not a split, not a triple spin. Just one simple move, so we're actually performing together for at least 5 seconds. Dean thought about it. How simple? A turn. That's it. I'll spin you around, you complete the spin. We both end in a pose. 3 seconds. Maximum. And if I fall on my ass, then you fall on your ass. And the audience will love it, because it's Dean Martin falling on his ass. Dean grinned. All right, deal. But if this ruins my back, I'm sending you the medical bills. They spent the next 2 weeks rehearsing, but not in the way Gene usually rehearsed. Dean would show up, sing his song a couple times, smoke a cigarette, and leave. Gene would stay for hours, perfecting his choreography. They'd run through the ending together once or twice, just to make sure Dean knew when to turn. The night of the gala, backstage, Gene was warming up, stretching, running through steps. Dean was sitting in a chair reading the newspaper, drink in hand. "You nervous?" Gene asked. "About what?" "The performance, the spin, the audience." Dean folded his newspaper. "Gene, I'm going to tell you something my father told me when I was a kid. He said, Dino, if you're nervous, you're doing it wrong. Nervous means you care what people think. And if you care what people think, you'll never be happy. So no, I'm not nervous. I'm going to go out there, sing a song, do a spin, and go home. And I'll sleep great tonight, regardless of how it goes." Gene sat down next to him. "You're either the wisest person I've ever met, or the laziest. Why not both?" They went on stage. Dean stood at the microphone. Gene stood 10 feet away. The music started. Dean sang "Ain't That a Kick in the Head." His voice was smooth, effortless, perfect. Gene danced around him. Not with him. Around him. Spins. Taps. Slides. Poetry in motion. Dean didn't even look at him. Just sang. Smoked. Smiled at the audience. Then came the final moment. The spin. Dean finished the last note of the song. Gene swept in, took Dean's hand, and spun him. Dean turned. Not gracefully, not perfectly. He stumbled a little. His foot landed wrong. But he kept his balance, struck a pose next to Gene, and grinned at the audience like he'd just completed the most difficult move in dance history. The crowd went absolutely insane, not because it was technically perfect, but because it was real. Because Dean Martin, the epitome of cool, had just tried to dance and almost fallen and didn't care at all. Backstage, Gene couldn't stop smiling. "You know what? That was perfect. I almost fell." Exactly. I've spent my entire career trying to make everything look effortless by being perfect. You make everything look effortless by not caring about perfection. I think I've been doing it wrong. Dean lit a cigarette. "Gene, you're one of the greatest dancers who ever lived. You haven't been doing it wrong. You've been doing it your way. I do it my way. They're both right. But maybe I've been so focused on perfection that I forgot the whole point is to enjoy it. Now you're getting it." Gene sat down. "Can I tell you something? I spend so much time worried about every little detail. Every step has to be exact. Every move has to be flawless, and it's exhausting. Watching you just not care, that's freedom. That's what I've been missing." Dean blew out smoke. "You want to know the secret?" "Yes." "There is no secret. You just decide that your peace of mind matters more than other people's opinions. You decide that being good enough is actually good enough. You decide that life's too short to spend it stressed about a dance step. But doesn't that mean you never push yourself? Never improve? No. It means you don't let the pursuit of improvement ruin your enjoyment of the thing you're improving at. You love dancing, right? More than anything. Then dance because you love it, not because you need to be perfect at it. The second you make it about perfection, you lose the love. And once you lose the love, what's the point?" Gene was quiet for a long time. Then he stood up. "Dean Martin, you just taught me more about dancing than anyone ever has, and you can't even do a proper box step." Dean grinned. "That's because dancing isn't about steps, Gene, it's about feeling good while moving. And I feel great." Years later, Gene Kelly would tell this story in interviews about the day Dean Martin refused to learn choreography and ended up teaching him the most important lesson of his career, that perfection is overrated, that joy matters more than flawlessness, that sometimes the best performance is the one where you almost fall but don't care. Gene never stopped being meticulous, never stopped pushing himself. But after that night, he started enjoying it more, started stressing less, started remembering why he fell in love with dancing in the first place. All because Dean Martin couldn't do a split and didn't care that he couldn't. The lesson here isn't that you shouldn't try to be great. Gene Kelly's dedication to his craft gave us some of the most beautiful dancing ever captured on film. His pursuit of perfection created art. But Dean Martin's refusal to stress over what he couldn't do gave us something just as valuable, a reminder that you don't have to be good at everything, that staying in your lane is okay, that knowing your limitations isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Gene spent years learning to dance perfectly. Dean spent years learning not to care about perfection. Both approaches created legends. The magic happened when they met in the middle, when Gene loosened up enough to enjoy the stumble, when Dean cared enough to at least try the spin, when perfection and good enough stood on stage together and created something neither could have created alone. Gene Kelly and Dean Martin, the perfectionist and the professional, the artist and the entertainer, the man who cared too much and the man who cared just enough. And for 3 minutes on a stage in Vegas, they showed everyone watching that both ways are right. You just have to know which one is yours.